We assume the search for alien signals has produced nothing but silence. It hasn't. For 72 seconds in August 1977, a radio telescope in Ohio recorded something roughly 30 times stronger than the background sky. It arrived on the one frequency scientists had agreed in advance to watch. It came from a direction with no known source, and it has never been heard again. No hoax has been identified, no satellite matches it, no natural process has been confirmed. This is not a lost file or an internet rumor. The printout still exists. So does the handwriting on it. 49 years later, the most accurate summary of that signal is still the single word a volunteer astronomer wrote in the margin with a red pen. The first stop is the night itself. August 15, 1977. The Radio Observatory at Ohio State University, an instrument covering roughly 3 football fields, nicknamed the Big Ear. The telescope could not be aimed. It had no motors to track a target. It stared at a fixed strip of sky and waited for the rotation of the Earth to drag the universe past it. Nobody sat at a console. Nobody wore headphones. The receiver output went to a line printer, which stamped a column of numbers onto continuous paper, hour after hour, night after night. The signal arrived at about 10:16 in the evening, local time. There was no alarm. No one in the building reacted, because there was nothing to react to. The paper simply advanced. Jerry Eman, a volunteer reviewing the stack of printouts, found it days later at his kitchen table. This is the first unsettling part. The signal was not missed through carelessness. The instrument was never built to notice anything while it was happening. If something intelligent aimed at us that night, it reached a machine that could not reply, watched by nobody, and its arrival sat in a pile of paper for days before a single human being knew it had happened. The Big Ear did not record sound. It recorded intensity. Each character on the printout represented about 12 seconds of listening in one narrow channel. Weak readings printed as digits, 0 through 9. Anything stronger ran into the alphabet, A for 10, B for 11, and upward. Most of the page was zeros and ones. Ordinary sky. The sequence Eman circled read 6, E, Q, U, 5. E is 14, Q is 26, U is 30. In the entire operating life of that telescope, it never printed another U. The letter meant the incoming power was about 30 times the standard deviation of the background noise. In radio astronomy, 3 is interesting. 5 is usually publishable. 30 is not a detection so much as a shout. Eman drew a circle around the 6 characters and wrote one word beside them, wow. That word became the official name. It has never been replaced, because nothing more precise has ever been earned. Here the disturbing part is not how loud it was. It is how well documented it is. We know the intensity. We know the channel. We know the minute and the duration. We can measure almost everything about that signal, except the only thing that matters. Precision and ignorance are not opposites. In this case, they arrived together. The signal sat at roughly 1420 megahertz. That number is not arbitrary. It is the frequency at which neutral hydrogen radiates across the universe, the most abundant substance in existence, broadcasting at a wavelength of 21 centimeters. In 1959, 2 physicists at Cornell, Giuseppe Cocconi and Philip Morrison, argued that if anyone wanted to be found, this is where they would call. Any civilization with radio astronomy discovers hydrogen first. The frequency needs no shared culture, no shared mathematics, no agreement of any kind. Physics assigns it. Because of that, the band around 1420 megahertz is protected on Earth. Transmitting into it is restricted by international agreement, which is one reason ordinary ground interference at that exact frequency is hard to argue for. The signal was also narrow. Its bandwidth was under 10 kilohertz, a thin, deliberate slice. Natural astronomical sources tend to smear across wide ranges of frequency. Narrowband transmission is what technology does. And this is what makes the frequency so unsettling. It is not that the signal was strong. It is that it was strong in the exact place we had announced we would be listening. If that is coincidence, it is a coincidence that landed on a target we painted ourselves. 72 seconds sounds like an arbitrary number. It isn't. Because the big ear could not move, any fixed point in the sky took about 72 seconds to drift through its beam. That was the full length of the window, the telescope's attention span, not the transmission's. So the signal did not last 72 seconds. It lasted at least that long, and then we stopped listening. The intensity curve confirms it. The signal rose as the beam swept onto the source, peaked in the middle, and faded as the beam moved away. That rise and fall is the fingerprint of the antenna itself. This removes most of the easy answers. An aircraft, a satellite in low orbit, a passing vehicle, a piece of ground equipment, none of them would trace the telescope's own beam pattern that precisely. Whatever emitted it was effectively motionless against the stars. It was celestial. Here is the part that is hard to sit with. The end of the signal tells us nothing about the signal. It only tells us about the rotation of the Earth. The transmission may have continued for hours. We turned away. Eamon went back. He checked the same coordinates on later nights. Nothing. The big ear used two feed horns offset from one another. Any genuine celestial source should pass through both, a few minutes apart, producing two detections. The wow signal appeared in one. That single absence created a permanent problem. Without knowing which horn caught it, there are two possible positions in the sky, both in the constellation Sagittarius, roughly toward the center of the galaxy. Everyone who came afterwards had to search two places instead of one. Robert Gray spent years on it, his own equipment first, then the Meta array at Harvard, then the Very Large Array in New Mexico in the mid-1990s, then a telescope in Australia. Others have looked since, with instruments far more sensitive than the big ear ever was. Every search returned nothing. And this is where the silence becomes its own kind of problem. A repeat would have settled it. The absence of a repeat settles nothing. A single burst is exactly what you would expect from a scanning beam, or a one-time natural event, or a transmitter that moved on. It is also exactly what you would expect from an error nobody has managed to identify. Non-detection cannot separate those three. Several have been offered, none have survived. In 2017, a researcher proposed that two comets, 266P/Christensen and PCS 2008Y2, had drifted through the region and released clouds of hydrogen. The astronomical community rejected it quickly. Comets do not emit narrowband radio at anything close to that intensity, and the orbital reconstructions place them poorly. In 2022, a survey of stars inside the search region identified a Sun-like candidate about 1,800 light-years away, cataloged as 2-mass 1928-1982 to 640-123. That is an address, not an explanation. In 2024, a team re-examining archived data from Arecibo proposed something more careful, a magnetar flare striking a cold cloud of hydrogen, briefly forcing it to behave as a natural maser and release a single sharp pulse. It is the strongest natural explanation anyone has produced. It is also, so far, a hypothesis waiting for a second example. And here the difficulty is structural rather than scientific. Every proposed explanation is being tested against an event that happened once, was recorded by an instrument demolished in 1998, and cannot be reproduced. There is no experiment left to run. There is a strip of paper and 6 characters. A theory that fits it perfectly and a theory that fits it badly are, at this moment, equally untestable. The big ear was dismantled in 1998. The land became an extension of a golf course. The frequency is still protected. The coordinates are still searched. The printout is preserved, and the red ink is still legible. Voids may hide the structure of the universe. Wandering black holes may cross the galaxy unseen. Magnetars may force matter into shapes it should not hold. The wow signal does none of that. It is not dangerous. It cannot reach us. It never came back. But it remains the only entry of its kind in the record. For 72 seconds, one narrow channel of sky carried something that matched every criterion we had written down in advance. The right frequency, the right bandwidth, the right motion across the sky. Then it stopped, and the case for it stopped with it. What is disturbing here is not that we failed to answer. It is that the question was closed by circumstance rather than by evidence. The instrument is gone. The window is gone. Whatever was there was under no obligation to wait for us. We are not searching for it now, not in any meaningful sense. We are studying a photocopy of the one night we happened to be pointed in the right direction.